I had been working at the company for almost 3 years, and I always thought I knew my boss well enough. Mr. Harrison was strict but fair. He had a way of commanding respect without being harsh, and most of the employees admired him from a distance. I, on the other hand, had always tried to stay professional. I never thought of him as more than my boss. That was until one ordinary Monday morning when everything changed. I had arrived early, as usual, to prepare for the big presentation. I wanted everything to be perfect because it was my first time leading a project presentation in front of the entire management team. As I was setting up the slides and checking the conference room, I noticed Mr. Harrison standing by the door, looking more nervous than I had ever seen him. He smiled awkwardly and asked if I had a few minutes to talk in private. My heart skipped a beat, though I wasn't sure why. I agreed and followed him to his office. The office felt different that day, quieter and heavier somehow. He motioned for me to sit down and sat across from me. Then, without the usual small talk, he took a deep breath and said something I never expected. I have been thinking about this for a long time, and I need to be honest with you. I want to marry you. I froze. At first, I thought I must have misheard him. He was my boss, my superior, someone I had always seen in a professional light. Marriage had never crossed my mind in relation to him. My mouth opened, but no words came out. He continued, I know this is sudden, and it might feel shocking, but I can't deny my feelings anymore. I respect you, I admire you, and I care about you deeply. I want us to be together. I could feel my mind racing. There were so many thoughts at once. What would people think? How would this affect our work? Could a relationship like this even work? But there was also a strange warmth in my chest, a recognition that perhaps he felt something real, something honest. I looked at him and saw sincerity in his eyes. It was not a joke, it was not a trick, it was real. I nodded slowly, trying to gather my thoughts. I need some time to think, I said softly, trying to buy myself a moment to process everything. He smiled, a mixture of relief and nervousness. Of course, take all the time you need. But I couldn't keep this from you any longer. Over the next few days, I found it impossible to focus on work. Every time I saw him, I could feel a tension between us, a quiet acknowledgement of the conversation that had changed everything. I tried to act normal, but it was difficult. I kept replaying his words in my mind. By the end of the week, I realized that I had already made my decision. There was a part of me that had always admired him, not just as a boss, but as a person. His dedication, his kindness, the way he treated everyone with respect, it had always left an impression on me. And now, knowing that he cared for me in a personal way, I felt something stir in my heart. I decided to meet him after work on Friday. We went to a quiet cafe, away from the office and the eyes of our colleagues. The atmosphere was different. We could finally be ourselves without worrying about professional boundaries. He looked at me nervously, waiting for my answer. I took a deep breath and said, I want to try. I want to be with you. His face lit up with a smile so genuine that it made my heart flutter. From that moment on, our relationship changed. We kept it discreet at first, understanding the need for professionalism in the workplace. We spent time together outside of work, getting to know each other in ways that were impossible within the office walls. I discovered his love for cooking, his quiet humor, and his gentle nature. He learned about my passions, my dreams, and my fears. Every date, every conversation, every small gesture strengthened our bond. Despite the challenges, despite the risks of office gossip, I felt happier than I had ever been. We were careful, respectful, and honest with each other. The thought of being married to him seemed both thrilling and comforting at the same time. Months passed, and our relationship grew stronger. We had navigated the tricky waters of workplace romance with patience and maturity. Finally, one evening, he took me to the same spot where he had first confessed his feelings. He got down on one knee and asked me formally to marry him. I said yes, tears streaming down my face, feeling a happiness I had never known before. From that day, I realized that life could surprise you in the most unexpected ways. The man I had once seen only as my boss had become the love of my life. Our journey was not just about romance, but about trust, respect, and understanding. We learned to balance work and love, to support each other's ambitions, and to face challenges together. I often think back to that Monday morning, the moment that changed everything. What had started as a professional relationship had transformed into a lifelong partnership. I never imagined I would marry my boss, but now, I cannot imagine my life without him. It was unexpected, it was unconventional, and it was beautiful. And as I stand beside him, holding his hand, I know that taking that leap of faith was the best decision I have ever made. After we got engaged, life felt like a delicate balancing act. On the outside, everything seemed normal at work. I continued to perform my duties diligently, attending meetings, preparing reports, and leading projects as I always had. But inside, everything had changed. My heart carried a secret joy, a warmth that I shared only with him. At home, the dynamic was completely different. Suddenly, I found myself thinking about our future constantly, where we would live, how we would manage our personal and professional lives, and how our families would react to the news. I had always imagined a peaceful, simple life, but now I had to consider so many things I had never thought about before. One evening, after a particularly long day at the office, he came to my apartment. He was tired but smiling, carrying a small bouquet of flowers. "I thought these would brighten your day," he said softly. I laughed, feeling my tension melt away. Sitting together, we talked about the upcoming wedding, the people we wanted to invite, and the little details that suddenly seemed so important. It was during these moments that I realized how deeply I had fallen in love with him. But love, as I quickly learned, did not erase the challenges. I still had to manage my family, who knew nothing of our relationship. They had always expected me to focus entirely on my career and personal life separately. Telling them that I was marrying my boss felt like stepping into uncharted territory. I hesitated, unsure of how they would react. What if they disapproved? What if they thought I was making a mistake? At the same time, I wanted to be honest, to share my happiness with the people I loved most. The day I finally decided to tell them, I was a bundle of nerves. I invited my parents over for tea, and as they arrived, I could see the usual warmth in their eyes. But beneath it, I sensed curiosity. After the first few minutes of casual conversation, I took a deep breath and said, "I have something important to tell you. I'm going to marry Mr. Harrison." My parents froze. For a moment, there was silence, and I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. Then questions came, rapid fire. "Your boss. Are you sure? How will this affect your career? People at work will talk." I listened patiently, understanding their concerns, and tried to reassure them. I explained that our relationship was built on mutual respect, that we were careful about professionalism, and that we genuinely cared for each other. Slowly, I noticed their expressions softening. By the end of the conversation, they were still cautious, but they smiled and wished me happiness. That night, I realized that honesty was the foundation of any strong relationship, whether with family or with a life partner. Meanwhile, at work, we continued to navigate the complexities of our dual roles. He was my boss, and I had to maintain professionalism at all times. There were moments of tension when colleagues suspected something was different, but we handled it with care. We never let our personal lives interfere with our responsibilities, and over time, people began to respect the boundaries we maintained. But life outside the office was a different story. We shared dreams, fears, and plans in private. We cooked dinner together, discussed travel destinations, and laughed over silly jokes that only we understood. I discovered new sides of him, the way he was patient when teaching me to cook, the way he remembered small details about my day, and the way he supported me when I doubted myself. In turn, he learned about my insecurities and ambitions, and we grew closer with every conversation. One particular weekend stands out in my memory. We decided to take a short trip to the countryside to escape the pressures of work. The quiet mornings, long walks, and endless conversations made me realize how deeply our lives were intertwined. It was during this trip that we spoke seriously about the future, about children, our careers, and how we would support each other through every challenge. That conversation strengthened my resolve to commit fully, knowing that we were partners in every sense. However, balancing work, love, and family life was not without its struggles. There were times when I felt overwhelmed, trying to juggle deadlines, family expectations, and wedding preparations all at once. He noticed my stress and always found ways to ease it, whether by surprising me with my favorite dessert, taking over some tasks, or simply listening without judgment. His support made the impossible seem possible. Over time, we also learned the importance of boundaries. We agreed to keep office and home separate, to address issues as they arose, and to communicate openly about any concerns. This mutual understanding became the cornerstone of our relationship. It was not always easy, but it was worth every effort. Friends and colleagues began to notice the changes in me. I was happier, more confident, and more focused. My energy at work improved, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. It was remarkable how love, when handled with respect and care, could positively influence every aspect of life. As the wedding day approached, we faced another layer of complexity, planning an event that honored both of our families and respected our professional roles. There were disagreements, small misunderstandings, and moments of doubt, but we always returned to the core of our relationship: trust, love, and respect. Finally, the day arrived. Standing beside him, I felt a mixture of excitement, nervousness, and deep contentment. Friends, family, and colleagues had gathered, witnessing a union that was as unconventional as it was heartfelt. During the ceremony, I looked into his eyes and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. We had overcome fears, doubts, and societal expectations to reach this point. And now, surrounded by those who mattered most, we were ready to begin our life together. In the days that followed, settling into married life was an adventure in itself. We adjusted to living together, managing shared responsibilities, and continuing to support each other in our careers. There were moments of laughter, occasional disagreements, and countless small joys. Through it all, the foundation of our relationship, communication, trust, and love, kept us strong. Looking back, I realized that marrying my boss was not just a romantic decision. It was a journey of self-discovery, courage, and growth. I learned that life does not always follow conventional paths, and sometimes, taking a risk leads to the most rewarding experiences. Our love story was unconventional, yes, but it was ours, unique and genuine. Balancing work, love, and family life was a challenge, but one we faced together, hand in hand. And in that balance, we found not just happiness, but a sense of completeness that neither of us had ever imagined possible.